Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon, and I'm so happy to be back. We did say we was going to take 2 weeks, but we took one. We missed you guys as much as you missed us. So we back. So grab your popcorn, grab your drink, grab the kids, call the neighbors, call your auntie, call your cousins, call your nieces and your nephews, your mama and your papa, your granny. Tell them that Simon Says is on. Get your stuff together, your tablets, your pills, your notepad and your pencil. Buckle your seatbelts. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. So we have an update on Kaipo. Mr. Fimber Thomas, I was told by the registrar, Mr. Robert Branch, that Mr. Thomas was transferred to the Ministry of the Blue Economy. Now, my question to Mr. Branch was, where are they with the investigation on Fimber Thomas and the allegations of embezzlement of government funds and the corruption that took place at Kaipo? Did he engage the relevant bodies or entities? The Public Service Commission, for instance, the FIU, the Attorney General's office? And his answer was yes. So we await the results, because removing Mr. Thomas, Fimber Thomas, from Kaipo and sticking in him at the Blue Economy, that's another MIT there in the waiting, huh? That Blue Economy ministry, right? It doesn't help. It really doesn't. We need an investigation, and Mr. Thomas should have been on administrative leave while he was being investigated. But during the Afro-Caribbean Forum, he was working directly with the Prime Minister. He was the Prime Minister's liaison officer. So it seems like when you corrupted, when you do fraudulent acts, you get promoted instead of being fired or sent on leave whilst the investigation is happening. The fact is, for the most part, there's no investigation. And these guys, these young people are allowed to get away with wrongdoings. Turn a blind eye. It's okay, because no one is perfect. And who shouldn't pelt stone, and pot shouldn't call kettle black. Right? And so it's okay. Tell the young people that's looking on that it's okay to commit crimes, fraud, bribery, as in the case of Andy Williams. The corruption at the blatant corruption at the National Lottery Authority. It's okay. All of that is okay. Now, information reaching me is that when Mr. Thomas was called in to a meeting with the registrar and whoever else that was at that meeting, he pulled out his phone and engaged the Prime Minister at that meeting. I guess he has him on speed dial. You just notice the ones who can pull out their phone and call the Prime Minister. You just, like Mr. William Batiste and Dunbar, they can just whip out their phone and call the Prime Minister. Just to say, Simon Says will not let this one rest. The transfer is not the end of the corruption, of the fraudulent act, of the embezzlement that took place at Kaipo in plain sight at times, in plain sight, right? It will not, we would not let it rest. And we're going to add that to the list. The bribery list, the lotto corruption, the MIT corruption with the persons, the Build Back Better program. We're going to add it to the list, right? By the way, I have to update you on Catwills, the company Catwills that was owned by Mr. Batiste, William Batiste, the chairman of the board of the Lottery Authority that went bankrupt. Today, that company has risen from the dead and is functioning tenfold. Here's an advertisement.
You need stationery? Come to Catwills Stationery Services Limited, the reliable office supply people located on Scott Street, St. George's. Now with the same great service that you love and even better prices on all your stationery for office and school. We have office supplies, office furniture and more. Don't tell nobody, but we have the lowest prices nationwide. We also provide fast and free delivery service island-wide from our Scott Street location. For more information or to order, call 422-5848 or 5747. Email us at catwillsoffice@gmail.com or pull up and visit us on Scott Street and get the biggest selection in stationery for office and school at our everyday lowest prices store-wide. Catwills for selection, services, and savings.
Build Back Better in its true form. We had a $295,000 overrun of a project that the Ministry of Infrastructure and Ministry of Sports knew nothing about initially. We have 200,000 signed for a skills program that never started. Rents paying for a space on Scott Street, right? They say, all skin teeth is not green, huh? We'll follow up. We'll follow up on all the fraudulent acts, all the corruption. We continue to bring them to you until we get results. Until. Now in the news, on Wednesday, the 13th August 2025, Grenadians were stunned by the news in a press statement put out by the U.S. Department of State through the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, captioned visa restrictions on African, Cuban, and Grenadian government officials involved in the Cuban regime's coercive forced labor export scheme. And let me read to you that that release. Let me get my glasses here. And it reads, today, the Department of State took steps to impose visa restrictions on African, Cuban, and Grenadian government officials and their family members for their complicity in the Cuban regime's medical mission scheme, in which medical professionals are rented by other countries in high prices, and most of the revenue is kept by the Cuban authorities. The scheme enriches the corrupt Cuban regime while depriving the Cuban people of essential medical care. The United States continue to engage governments and will take action as needed to bring an end to such forced labor. We urge governments to pay the doctors directly for their services, not the regime slave masters. The United States aims to support the Cuban people in their pursuit of freedom and dignity and promote accountability for those who perpetuate their exploitation. We call on all nations that support democracy and human rights to join us in this effort to confront the Cuban regime abuses and stand with the Cuban people. Now, nice note there, nice note there. In response of the office of the Prime Minister of Grenada, now they issued a statement dated the 14th of August 2025. And let me read to you that statement, which says, public statement by the government of Grenada, August 14, 2025. And it comes from the office of the Prime Minister of Grenada. The government of Grenada has taken note of the recent press statement issued by the United States Department of State. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is actively engaged with the authorities of the United States through established diplomatic channels in addressing this matter. We assure the people of Grenada that your government is attending this situation with the utmost responsibility and in the best interest of our nation. We urge the public to be guided by official information issued by the Ministry of Affairs or Foreign Affairs, as we will provide further updates as appropriate. Now, an empty statement, really. The statement is all wrong, and it clearly shows that we are governed by an inexperienced, arrogant, ignorant, and immature bunch of inept politicians. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is actively engaging with the authorities of the United States through established diplomatic channels. First of all, this situation and its engagement should come from the highest level, not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This requires the engagement of the Prime Minister, a formal, comprehensive, coherent policy response. That's what we need. In fact, this response should have been made when Grenada, along with the islands in the Caribbean, were accused of human trafficking and abuse and mistreating of the Cuban service providers working in our country, mostly in the health profession. This was reported somewhere up in February of August of 2025. At that point, the governments of Barbados and Jamaica addressed the situation promptly and at the highest level with their prime ministers, and even sent a delegation to Cuba to discuss the matter at hand. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, visited the Caribbean, those two countries, Barbados and Jamaica. What was our response? We had members of our cabinet literally saying they support Cuba over America, and that it was okay if they didn't have to go to America anymore. Basically, and I'm paraphrasing here. As a matter of fact, here are two of our cabinet ministers as they addressed the issue.
Cuba continues to be a trustworthy friend and partner not only of Grenada, not only of the Caribbean, but of peoples the world over. When the COVID pandemic broke out, Cuban doctors went as far as Italy to provide services. I didn't hear anybody talk about human trafficking or nothing like that. Mr. Speaker, we have not just a legal obligation, we have a moral and ethical obligation to stand by the people of Cuba. Were it not for the selfless support of Cuba, many of us would not have had the opportunities for further education that we got. On the other side, the honorable member from St. Mark, testament of that. Other table enough for that. No. The renowned economist, Honorable Chotai, Brother Dennis Cornwall, and myself for a brief period. Our health infrastructure would collapse without the generous intervention of Cuba. And for that, we must always take a principled stand and at all costs avoid being opportunistic or transactional as it relates to the relationship between Cuba and Grenada. So the Prime Minister led a delegation to Cuba on an official visit, and again, a number of very important cooperation agreements were signed. Health, education, environment, culture, and so on. Mr. Speaker, going back to travel again. In 2023,
and I want to ask you this question of being a part of the cabinet here in Grenada. I want to ask you this question. We have heard that the U.S. intention to impose that visa restriction on all all government officials, I should say, yourself, your family included. If Grenada and all other countries do not immediately end or engage the Cuban medical professionals, what is the volume of Cuban involvement in Grenada's health? If you could answer that for me, also healthcare system, and what damage can this do to the health system here in Grenada? And if I could continue along that line, a couple of multiple points of this question. No definite statement, I would say, has been made on the issue by your government, if I could say that, thus far, with the exception of saying thanks to the Cubans. Is your cabinet and other senior government officials willing to give up their U.S. visas, to keep Cuba healthcare professionals in Grenada system? And if not, what are the alternatives being discussed? Are there any alternatives being discussed thus far by cabinet members?
Well, I always believe that we have to put the people above one political self. And in that sense, I believe that my government has already cited that we are prepared to go to the extreme to make sure that we keep our people safe. So if it means that we have to give up our visa rights to the U.S. to make sure that Grenada stands behind Cuba as one of the countries that supported Grenada in thick and thin. I personally was one of the persons who graduated from Cuba University back in the days and so on. I got a scholarship to Cuba. And as such, I have a moral obligation to support the Cubans in every way. So if it means that the government of the U.S. decided to take away our visas because we support the Cuban initiative, I would say so be it.
Yeah.
The Cuban doctors and nurses who have visited our shows over the years and perform a valuable service for our people. We complain every day that the service in the hospital is bad. But we have Grenadians who are graduated from St. George universities, Grenadians, and they are not here to basically support the health system. So if we can depend on the Cuban graduates to basically help the system until we can fix it to a point, I would say so be it. And I'll fully support the Cubans at any time, anywhere, because I think they are doing a very useful and human service to the government of Grenada and the people of Grenada.
It shouldn't be where our ministers, our cabinet members have to choose to say, I am sticking with Cuba. It shouldn't be like that. We should be able to say whether you're Canadian, you from the UK, you American, you Cuban, you from Morocco, wherever, that you all get treated the same way in Grenada, and that we're not human trafficking. We're not abusing anybody from any country, but that comes with communication, right? What did the government of Grenada do that may represent how this matter was treated in a deliberate, coherent, and international response to the issue? What has it done? Can the government of Grenada say to us that they have responded comprehensively to the US State Department on this issue? You see, this issue has nothing to do with politics and ideology, and therefore we should engage the US State Department. This is about the health, the well-being, the lives, and the livelihood of our people, be it with Cuba or the USA, because we all engage these countries, right? Now, our foreign policy shows that the USA is our most important relationship with any country. So this pull in and say, we stand with Cuba, we standed with Cuba, that's hogwash. A non-partisan, non-political one. It is about us economically. What are we going to do with our fish, our tuna, our soursop, and the other fruits from Grenada that we can enter the USA with freely without the customs taking it away from us? What happens to that? What happens to our tourism product? Mostly survive on visitors from the USA, be it sleepover, be it cruise ship, be it overnight, the yachties, the catamarans, mostly tourists from the USA. Grenada has always had a special relationship with the USA. How have we fallen so far, so fast? How did we get here? We were singled out, the only country in the Caribbean to be threatened of visa restriction and steps taken to impose such on our government officials and their families. But this has been happening to the ordinary Grenadian over the past month, the past weeks. There are Grenadians who have had visas for almost all of their lives. And when they went to renew their visa, it was refused. They were refused. One customer told me she was treated like a criminal. I have a family member in law who had a visa since he was a baby. And at 30, went to renew his visa and it was denied. The NDC is digging a grave for us. This is not a revolutionary government. When we chanted, let them come, we're going to bury them in the sea. This is long gone, over and done with. We are making enemies with the USA. We are making enemies with the UK. Not even the revolution got rid of the crown. They kept the Governor General. Remember Sir Paul Schoon? They kept him as Governor General. They honored the crown. They did not disrespect the crown. What did they do? They suspended the Constitution. So they did not have to disrespect the crown. Again, what has our government done that may represent how this matter was treated in a deliberate, coherent, and international response to the issue at hand? Can the government of Grenada say they responded comprehensively to this issue? The release stated that we engaged the authorities of the United States. Who is the authority of the United States? This should be a government to government engagement. What are we talking about, authority? We were not reassured by this statement released from the Prime Minister's office that we are in the hands of a safe and responsible government. It is clear that we are dealing with an administration that's failing over and over again for an issue so serious. They have responded with a weak and what I termed Popeye flute statement. I'm ashamed, as we all should be. As we all should be. We take a quick break and come right back to the meat of the matter. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Folks, I saw a post made by our Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Labor and Consumer Affairs, Cindy Dota, and I had to run out. As a matter of fact, I was trying to get to you before today, but it didn't work out. It was Carnival and it just didn't work out. Now, the lies and the deception must not be allowed to fester and poison the minds of our people here at home and in the diaspora, especially the ones in the diaspora. Now, let me read to you the post by Claudette Joseph. What's on my mind? The question and one question and two comments. One, how does a callaloo leaf in the rain feel? Two, government did not cause Clozier Road to collapse. The collapse having happened, we are doing all in our power to remedy the situation. Three, Molinaire, a heavily used part of the Western Main Road, collapsed in 2019. Listen carefully. It stayed collapsed until 2022, when we, your government, started work on it. If NNP won the 2022 elections, we would still be using Mount Morris. Folks, lies and deception. And it takes our Attorney General to come out and defend or try to defend what happened in Molinaire and especially what's going on at Clozier at the moment. Where's the Minister of Infrastructure, the CTO, and the engineers, and the Minister of Mobilization and Implementation? Huh? Where are these people? But in an effort to try, because they know there's no defense, but it's in an effort to try and save her payday, because the writing is on the wall. Desperation, it's called. Desperation. Now, first of all, 2019, Grenada saw its first case of COVID, what they call COVID-19. COVID quickly became a pandemic globally, and we had numerous lockdowns and restrictions. All construction sites were on lockdown. There was no construction happening, much less to start a construction during the COVID period. Roughly 3 years of COVID pandemic, which ended in 2022. By the way, COVID and some related viruses still lingers, but we are not told by the ministry and the Minister of Health. Likewise, dengue, and lately, information reaching me of tuberculosis. So in 2022 is when most countries open up their country borders. It's when the country returned to normalcy. When it came to the COVID-19 pandemic. In June of 2022, the NDC party won the general elections. So with that, all that have happened, all the processes, the procurement, etc., before a contract like the Molinaire project can be executed. How can a government come into office and in a matter of weeks execute such a project? How? How is it the NDC administration, according to Claudette, could have started work on the Molinaire project in 2022 when her government took office? Something must have started, the processes, the procurement must have started before. What could have been done during the COVID-19 pandemic was done. The NNP administration had conducted geotechnical surveys of the Western Main Road, identifying multiple high-risk slippage zones, Molinaire being one of them. The NNP administration instructed, and the NNP administration initiated and submitted the full Western Main Road rehabilitation project from St. Mark to St. George's to the UK Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, the UK CIF, and grant funding was secured for the project, including the Molinaire. They gave that project now to Andy Williams in the South. I want you to hear what he had to say in the Senate. I think it was a budget presentation, 2025.
When we came in office, there was a project called UK CIF. The UK CIF project was dated since 2016. We got a grant of approximately $80 million. Is equivalent now to our current account surplus. $80 million. Since 2016, Mr. Speaker, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, nothing was done. So what happened? The UK took back the funds. Mr. Speaker, thanks to our Prime Minister, we got it back. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes the other side are so deceiving, because they will go and pretend and make people believe that it was we who lost the funds. When it was stated that because we did not use the funds and the UK was unsure of their situation, they took it back. Now, Mr. Speaker, we got back the funds from the UK SIF. And in only just over a year, we are now preparing to do infrastructure works that will involve digging up the road from by the St. George's area to as far as Moy Bishop International Airport. And Mr. Speaker, we anticipate that the main roads will be disrupted. So what do we do as a KM government and as a government of vision? Mr. Speaker, we started to work on the Gulf Coast bypass roads. So that in the event, Mr. Speaker, that the main roads are disrupted, people can deviate and use the alternative roads to traverse and to go where they want to go. Mr. Speaker, these road projects are just a few examples of the tangible progress we are making in the constituency of St. George South.
And he called that progress. You take a project that's supposed to start from St. Mark in the Western Corridor, right down to Point Celine, and you give it to the south, from town, St. George's to Point Celine, and you call that project, and you call that progress, when the Western Corridor is loaded with issues of land slippage and broken bridges. They take the monies for the Western Road Rehabilitation Project and give it to Andy in the South. Follow the money to MIT. Tell us about the climate resilience, the climate change monies, Mr. Andy. Tell us about that monies. All monies are diverted to MIT, grants, monies that cannot be really traced at the moment because they're in office. Guys, have this.
Hi, good afternoon. I just have a quick question. You talked about involvement from foreign countries such as India and China, and you spoke about a lot of numbers in terms of funds that they're giving us. Only one, if I'm not mistaken, is in terms of grants. So I want to know, what's the catch? What are we giving these countries in return for all of this capital that they're giving us? Because we don't want Nigeria, we don't want things where we're selling off our island in order to build it up. I think that holding the integrity of what Grenada is and who Grenada is really important to me as a child of Grenadians and someone who values her Grenadian heritage. So what's the catch? Like, what are we giving these foreign nations in exchange for all of this money that they're giving us?
Now, Lord, you can go down one, Junior? Oh, okay. So, I can tell you about India. St. Vincent already got the grant from India. Suriname already got the grant from India. Now, when I travel, when I leave here, I'm going to South Korea. In about 10 minutes, I'll have to leave to go. Now, when I travel, I don't travel empty-handed. I travel with some concepts and some concepts of what we will need in Grenada. So when the meetings are finished, I will sit down with the Minister of Trade and say, hey, we will need XYZ in Grenada, what can you give, if possible? And there are grant funding outside. The UK give us grant to fix our infrastructure and to fix the road system. Grant we don't have to pay back. China gave us a grant for housing that we don't have to pay back. As far as I know, there is no catch. The grants are available or were available in India
just to access. And no one in Grenada was doing it. But I saw it and I accessed it, right? So to say that what we have to give back, as far as I know, there's nothing we have to give back. And also, you have a lot of grants outside, especially in the area of climate change. Because what happens is that the developed world, they do all the polluting to cause the climate change. But we are the one in the Caribbean and so that face the lasting or get the lasting effects of it. And there's a lot of grants in climate change. But you have to focus, you have to know where they are, and you have to get them to improve your country. If you go to take a loan for everything, you will be in debt till you can pay. And I think that was happening to some of the African countries. They took loans over what they could pay. And that's a strategy that was done in order to keep them at a certain level.
We don't want a Nigeria. I wonder what that means. Why? Why don't we want a Nigeria? Because Nigeria is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, loaded with poverty. What he said? We don't want to borrow to become like some African countries? And why do we want to pattern our lives after these African countries? Why are we inviting them into Grenada? Our little small, yeah, I'm going to use two of those adjectives. Our small island, yeah? Open the doors, open the gates, visa-free access to Grenada. Why? Let's look at this other clip quickly before we move on.
Let me just mention that when you go to Grenada, you see your mangoes, your golden apples, your fruits on the ground spoiling. But if you look back in the days of the great Maurice Bishop, there was a time when we had factories and we were doing our pulps and juices and so. But that was in the 80s. 40 years passed. And it's like we regress instead of progress. So one of our plan is to bring back agro-processing in Grenada. And I am not just saying it. Anyone could say anything, but you need to back it up. So when I went to India 2 months ago, I met with the Indian government, and they pledged to give Grenada $1 million in equipment, any equipment we want, to start our factories. Now, we have better news. When I go back to Grenada, the delegation will be visiting Grenada, and they said, Andy, that 1 million is now 2 million. So we have a chance to really push agro-processing in Grenada. And our dream is not to have it in St. George's, because everything is centered in St. George's. But we have to start promoting the urban to rural migration. And if we can have factories in the north and in the middle of the island, what it means is that infrastructure can be improved, housing can be improved, and everyone does not have to run to St. George's for a job. But we can have the rural areas being developed, and this is what we want. Now again, we have a case right now in Grenada where the ABC Islands are looking for products to import. And they have engaged Grenada, they have engaged the Ministry of Agriculture, and we are now working with them. So now we have a chance to export our product. But why do we need factories? Because we can add value to the product and get more from it.
Now, that was in 2023. I'll have you know, okay? In June or July of 2023. We're in 2025, folks, right? What is the backup plan? What, Andy? Andy, what he said? They don't just speak, they back it up. What have you backed up? All that chatter you just spoke there, what you back it up with? Where is the coconut factory? Where is the 2 million US dollars? Andy, it's not just 1 million anymore. It's 2 million now. Who does that? Which country to country, government to government does that kind of negotiations? What Indians that were supposed to come to Grenada in September of 2023 to finalize? Where are these Indians? Where are these people? What did you back up? You're mumbling with what? You see, and the people rode. Where are these people that were sitting in that audience? Aren't they asking the questions? Where's the factory? Where are the 2 million US dollars, Andy? What did you bring back from South Korea? You said you know what to do when you go on this trip, how to access the monies. They're there. So if you know how to access these monies, it therefore means that you are accessing these monies, but the country of Grenada, the government of Grenada are not receiving these monies. So if you're so good at accessing these monies, are you accessing these monies to your accounts? Where are these monies? Tell us about the many monies out there through climate change, Andy. You and Karine, tell us about those monies. The monies you and your government have been channeling through the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation. Follow the money through MIT. Yeah? And then it makes its way to personal accounts. The movements of monies through MIT into personal accounts. Is it true, Minister Andy Williams, a member of your staff of MIT, was fired recently because she questioned the movements of monies from the MIT account to other accounts? You see, what they had, internet banking, MIT has internet banking. So members of staff could feel the movement of monies, right? Money's moving from one account to the next. Yeah, internet banking. Is it true the Ministry of MIT is used to launder money, Minister Andy Williams and the Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell? This is a question to you both. Isn't money laundering a crime, a criminal activity? Likewise, bribery. So the monies you, Minister Andy Williams, got from the managing director of CCI, Mr. Nelson Louison, in exchange for the contract of the Cliff Road project, sir, the 115,000 EC dollars, 15,000 to renovate your pickup truck, and 100,000 in hand. We can use the purchase of the house, $600,000. That's where it began. The purchase of your property in Mount Parnassus. It's a criminal activity. Bribery is also a criminal activity. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, when can the people of the state of Grenada hear from you on the bribery activity that took place between your MIT minister, Andy Williams, and the CCI, Contractor and Managing Director, CEO, whichever one, Mr. Nelson Louison? When? I am waiting on the police. They have communicated with me a couple of times, so I must say that it seems to be going okay with the police. But I'm yet to hear from your FIU, Prime Minister, and it's your FIU. When you came into office, you removed all the officers from the RGPF, trained officers from the FIU, and you use your civilians, friends of yours, to build a new FIU with your friend, one of your friends, our colleague, as the head of the FIU. To date, I am yet to get, and I called to find out. I was told, hold on. The young lady came back and asked me to give her my number, which is in the file, the envelope that I dropped off. But I did again. She said when she speak to one of the officers on it, she would call me, she would let me know. I await. It's more than a month now, right? I await from the FIU. I also hope that the FIU is investigating Mr. Fimber Thomas from Kaipo. The Molinaire project was designed and funded under the NNP administration and was well on the way before the NDC took office in 2022. So don't let Cinti daughter fool you and write a deception and lies. Qualified consultants were competitively selected. Final engineering designs were completed. Contractors were procured through open tendering. Preliminary works had already commenced with Renault Construction Company, signed, sealed, and delivered. The heavy equipment and machinery already landed on our ports, and some of it on the construction site. Lest we forget, Claudette, your government, the administration, the NDC administration led by Deacon Mitchell, on entry, sent the Renault contractors hacking back to St. Lucia and hired locals to do the job. Now, according to your so-called Minister of Implementation, Andy Williams, boasting he hired engineers from throughout Grenada who could do the job. He hired them to do the job. Here's a clip compliments the GBN.
As you can see behind me, there seems to be no ongoing work at the Molinaire slippage project. Heavy equipment is on standstill and no workers on site. So why is the project on halt? We spoke to Minister for Mobilization, Andy Williams, for an answer.
The first design we had from for the Molinaire project, it did not take into consideration the top of the hill that's by the road. So what happened is that some months ago, one of the water lines, the major water line burst, and the water went, it sprayed on top, and it has some of the debris coming down in full. So, but besides from that, you have debris coming down from time to time. Now, the second design that we are doing, that have just been completed, it took into consideration the debris coming down from on top. So basically we had to redesign the whole project, and because of this, the project had to be halted for the time.
The minister further explained that the new design is now complete and work will soon commence on the project.
So the redesign is finished, and part of the redesign had to do with adding more piles to the road. So the piles are on the port now. We cleared some already, and we are in the process of clearing the others. When the pile is when we have completed clearing the piles, then you can look at work being started on the road. But basically, we had to do that because, if we had went with the first design, it would not have been proper. And we wanted to do a proper work on the Molinaire Road so that we do not have to go back there again, to do anything. So right now we are confident that the engineers who redesigned the project did a proper job, and in my opinion, it's a better design than the first one.
Williams said the project will be completed in January 2024.
Engineers from all over Grenada to look at the plan to really give their view on it, and they were satisfied with the new design that we have. So we are aiming to complete the project in Molinaire in January coming. It costs a little more, but we think it's all for the better good of the project and the road. So MIT and the Ministry of Infrastructure met, and we decided to engage the residents. So in a week or two, we will be going out in the communities, talking to the people, and letting them know exactly what is the case with the Molinaire Road. But they can be rest assured that we are working speedily to ensure that the implementation is on time.
It cost a lot more. It wasn't a little more. Tell us, Minister, why did you have to do a proper? Because you said the first design was not proper. Why did you have to do the second proper design? You ain't telling us that, right? All lies. All lies. Needless to say, the workers from the Ministry of Infrastructure that they put on the project after they sent Reno Construction packing back to St. Lucia, they juked down the top slope. They juked down the top slope. And then when that happened, and it came tumbling down, and they didn't know what to do because that was not supposed to be touched. And that is why they had to redesign the project, because they had to then deal with the slippage from the top slope after they took it down. And so they had to return to their vomit and bring back, because the engineers here, the workers they hired here, didn't know what to do. They couldn't deal with that. So they had to then bring back Reno from St. Lucia, which cost us extra. I'm not talking about added to the project, because they had to bring back their heavy equipment and all of that, right? In an interview on GBN, To the Point talk show program, former Minister for Infrastructure, Nolan Cox, explained what happened at Molinaire when questioned on it.
If you notice, there is significant excavation on the slope.
Yeah.
Those excavations were not to ever happen.
In answer to what Senator Cox said, the Prime Minister, on Ride Along, in script, and I quote, because we banned from using their clips, because we were exposing all the lies that they went on there and spewed. So they want us on there. But that's okay. And I quote, "I don't know if he knows what he is talking about," in reference to Senator Cox, right? Of them interfering with the top slope. The Prime Minister is saying, and I'm quoting, "I don't know if he knows what he is talking about." Then later on, On the Bob report, this is what the Prime Minister had to say on the whole Molinaire interference.
So we're going to move on to infrastructure and implementation. Now, in your national address, you articulated vast improvements in the implementation rate of government projects. Let us talk, however, about the Molinaire project. What is the implementation rate there? Certainly, it can't be contributing to that rate that you referenced. It does appear that there's some bottlenecks there, which your predecessor, Minister of Infrastructure, also articulated, which you rebutted. But what can we see in respect of further implementation of that project? It does appear that there are some complications there.
Right. So I think, as I indicated, what would have happened is that after the contractor took possession of the site and commenced the demolishing of the buildings and so on, which were on the bottom side, you had a situation where the Nawasa pipe, which runs along that ridge, broke. So that would have caused some disturbance to the site itself, and the site is an unstable site, and I think that's what obviously brought us here in the first place. So that would have created delays because you would have had to obviously cap the pipe and then have the pipe redone. So while that was being done, obviously work would not have continued. So that's the first issue that happened. Now the second issue that happened is that the Ministry of Infrastructure itself took the decision to I would use this word, interfere with the slope. Now the original design that Beston had done did not include doing any work on the slope. They recognized that that was one of the risks. Their approach with it was that the slope itself had not come down, and that they, as much as they recognized that there was a risk that it could come down, they felt that the work could continue on the bottom side, that the road could be rebuilt without the need to have to interfere with the slope. The Ministry of Infrastructure took a different position and in fact went onto the slope. Now, obviously, on going on, the slope is unstable, and significant work then would have been done on removing material from the slope, and that obviously would not have been part of the original design. And so once that happened, it meant obviously that you'd have further delays because you are now dealing with the slope, which was not part of the original design, which also would not have been part of the contractor's scope of work, right? Now, as that work went on, we would have had a change in ministerial portfolio. I would have been briefed on the matter. I myself went to the site, and having seen the site, it became quite clear to me that we needed to stabilize the slope, and therefore we could no longer proceed with the original design, which did not involve treating with the slope. And so what has happened since is that Beston, who was the consultants that did the original design, have been brought back in to look at the slope. They've provided designs that will deal both with the slope as well as the road itself, and as well as we have to work on the bottom slope, because the bottom slope obviously is where the action started in the first place. That is between the sea and the road itself. So now you have three components: between the sea and the road itself, and the upper slope, right? So we obviously need a comprehensive designs that will treat it all three. And in the case of the upper slope, it is not necessarily here. We are not talking here necessarily concrete works, but we're talking slope stabilization works, right? So we have to stabilize the slope to make sure that it reduces the risk of it coming down. Two, if it does come down, we have to have a road design that could withstand the slope coming down. And so there's been a new design for the road itself. And then three, we obviously need to make sure that we take action to stabilize the bottom slope as well. So as it stands now, the designs have been completed for what we call the foundation of bottom part of the road. We expect that those designs will be approved and that the contractor will be in a position to commence the work on that. There are additional ancillary work pre and post the site itself that the contractor has been doing since. But our expectation is that the contractor would be in a position to get the design works for the foundation aspect so that he can start that. It would likely require more piling of the site. And so obviously the piles and so on would have to be procured for him to be able to do that. And then we'd expect that he can commence in earnest the actual road construction. And so the timeline for completion has moved from the end of the year to the first quarter of 2024. But obviously you have to bear in mind that this period is the rainy season. And so the rain could always cause further delays to it. But certainly I think in coming out of this process, I think we are satisfied that the new design, I think is more comprehensive and perhaps a superior design to the original one, simply because it factors in both the slope at the top, the road itself, and we're also looking at the slope at the bottom.
What about the cost differential to the taxpayer?
Well, there's no question that the costs are going to be increased, because the cost would have increased by one, you had a broken pipe, which then would have caused damage to the site and would have had to relocate it. So that's a cost that would have had to be paid either between the master and the government. Two, the original design did not include doing anything with the slope. And as I've just pointed out, significant excavation took place at the slope to the tune of millions of dollars. And therefore, that is an increased price that we'd have to factor in. And then we would have to pay the consultant additional sums for the redesign. So definitely there would be some costs. And with the fact that you are likely to need more piling of the site, then it would obviously mean that the cost of construction itself will go up. So I can't give you a wrong figure off the top of my head as to what those cost differentials would be, but we certainly have the comparison when we have the final figures in between what the project was originally budgeted to cost and what the new cost would be.
I believe that project ended up being between 28 and 30 million dollars, in excess of 28 to 30 million dollars it ended up costing us. Yeah. Now, in an effort to stall, when they have whatever reason they need to stall, it's always to redesign. And I say this as I ask what is going on with the Simoon Cultural Center that was started before they came into office. And since then, they had to redesign because the design was not good enough. You redesign, okay. To date, where is it? Where is the 3 years and counting? The St. Dominic School, one wing in a little primary school, 1 year gone, and it's not completed. 1 year. There are set up uncompleted projects and houses, the same build back houses throughout the island. Uncompleted, nothing happening. They're just sitting or standing there. Uncompleted roads and bridges and projects. Because we're doing things, we're busy. Look at us, we're doing this. What they're doing is starting. They're starting. So they redesigned because, and they listen, according to the Prime Minister, they went and interfered with the mountain top, with the top slope that they wasn't supposed to touch. He said they took a chance and interfered. Yes, that's what caused them having to redesign to include the top slope. And again, blame it on the pipes. The water pipe again, right? Thank God for the water, saved by the bell. So they had to spend more money again. Didn't know the water pipes was there. Them, the locals, that broke the pipe and juke down the mountain. I said juke down, Prime Minister say interfere. What it was, as you've heard, the former Minister of Infrastructure saying they excavated the top slope until it started to come down, much like they did in Clozier. We'll come to Clozier in a bit. So this post from Claudette on the Molinaire project and them starting work in 2022 after they won the election in June of 2022. And if they didn't win, the road would have been the same all now. She said we'd be passing through Mount Morris all now. Lies and deception, pulling wool over people's eyes. There are some of the NDC supporters and friends, they know it's not true, but they spread it, they believe it. And there are the unassuming ones who don't know better, and they believe. And that's why on a daily basis, as I traverse Grenada, with the foreigners here as well, and I get the calls, and they thank me. They thank me for bringing the fact for bringing the news, what is going on, what is happening in Grenada to them. You see, they didn't have a good Deacon Mitchell group left in the diaspora. What happened to the galas? The people got wind of the corruption and don't know where their monies are going. Because the corruption is not just in Grenada, you know, it's as if it's a curse. Anyway, NDC is. So it's in the diaspora as well. The gala money is missing. The raffle money is missing. No prizes for the raffle. In the UK, in New York, it's anti-Fran Fran. Where is anti-Fran Fran? Where is anti-Fran Fran? Has a bracelet. She got a new bracelet. Folks, we have a problem. We have a huge problem with this administration, with lies, with rumors of lies, with fake news, with deception, with corruption, with fraud, here and in the diaspora. Here and in the diaspora. So what you hear from that post that Cinti daughter made there is hogwash. And another effort by the Deacon Mitchell-led administration to continue to falsely deceive the people in an effort to win the next general election. It's called desperation. And a desperate man will grab at a straw as he goes down. Now let us look at the Clozier project. And let me say here and now that NDC should be ashamed to mention the Clozier project in their mouths. Just stay quiet and do what you have to do if you can to be able to build back a road. I don't think you could save the man's house, even though it doesn't come all the way down. It cannot be saved. It's all cracked up and it's leaning to the side. It's been sinking. The steps on one side all gone down with the slippage. Just stay quiet. Shh. Shh. Don't say nothing on the Clozier. Just do what you have to do. It is most definitely the fault of the government of Grenada for the disaster that's taken place out there in Clozier St. John. I say so with no apologies. I say so because it's the fault of the Ministry of Infrastructure, whose line minister is the Prime Minister of Grenada, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. He's the Minister for Infrastructure. So the Ministry of Infrastructure hired the contractor. The Ministry of Infrastructure lacked the supervision needed to overlook the Clozier project. Where was the CTO, the chief technical officer of the Ministry of Infrastructure? As a matter of fact, lately he's been missing in action. There were so many mistakes made from the onset. In particular, the contractor did not apply any temporary shoring during the construction. When they started to excavate, and they continued to excavate even after advice from experts who reiterated over and over the need for temporary shoring to stop the slippage, to stop the land slippage. The CTO did not call for shoring. And it is clear that the design done by your ministry, Claudette, your Ministry of Infrastructure, with Deacon Mitchell as the line minister, did not call for it, did not call for shoring as part of the design's drawing. Therefore, the Ministry of Infrastructure is responsible and at fault. And the last I know, the Ministry of Infrastructure is a department of the government of Grenada, which is, by extension, responsible for the disaster. So the Ministry of Infrastructure is a department of the government of Grenada, and therefore, the government of Grenada is responsible for the disaster. It is clear the contractor was utterly incompetent to handle the Clozier project and unaware of what was needed to be done. They were told probably, I don't know, but it is clear from listening to the supervisor that they thought they were going there to build a few box drain and a back wall to hold up a little bit of the road that was broken. Never did soil testing and surveying. Not even after knowing, and I'm thinking they should know, that Clozier was full of springs throughout the land. And also, the testing needed to know where there are utility pipes run throughout. That's how you would know. You have to do the testing. Let's say the supervisor of the project.
I'm Kishan Gittins, foreman / supervisor on Fari Construction Company, FCSL.
Give us an appreciation of where we are and the reason that you all signed a contract here in the first instance.
Well, in the first instance, we came up here to do 110 feet of wall to protect the road because it was slipping, right? And box drain on the next side of the road because of the water that was soaking through the road, right? So initially we came up here to do 110 feet of road, roughly around 22 feet high.
And during the process, explain to us further how your project expanded.
Okay, so during the process, right, when we start cutting, we realized that we had to go deeper than initially had to go. So in that process, we realized that the road started slipping more. So we had extended on the wall to cover the area that's slipping, and that is the reason why we reached closer to the house that is in thing now. But we come up with a solution to protect the house through the ministry. We came and we shelving the wall, and we're gonna put a wing wall to protect the house.
In your excavation works, did you identify any of the contributing factors for the slippage of the land?
Yes, when we start cutting, we realize that the area up here, you have a lot of springs. So anybody who know Clozier area, they're gonna know that this area up here, you have a lot of springs. So when we start excavating, we realize that where we start cutting on the top side of the road, you have a spring that was soaking through, and that was causing the land to slip. So that is why we had to go deeper with the cutting of the road. So we end up now with a greater challenge on our hand where you have a house involved, right? But the experience we have through the ministry, we came up to a solution yesterday where we're gonna shelve the area and we're gonna put a wing wall to protect the house. And if anybody know what they call the gabion basket, we're gonna put a gabion basket there so the water, what is in the land, because of the mold that is there, it's gonna slip out, take out all the water in the land. So you're gonna protect the house.
So where's the gabion basket? I don't know if they put a gabion basket yet. Because, folks, the gentleman said they saw the water seeping through on the lower slope. He said so. He just said so. They saw, and anybody who knows Clozier, know Clozier Fuller Spring, and they excavated, they kept excavating further in, like they're going to see where the spring is, right? Without putting temporary shoring. That the water was causing the slippage, but they continued to excavate right up under the people property until the wall, the things start to fall down, the steps and so. And he said they went there to put up a wall to prevent the road from breaking further, and some box drain to take care of the water that was seeping through on the other side. He said it, he confirmed it, right? And seeing the water slipping, the water seeping through, rather, and the soil slipping, they had no idea that they're supposed to put temporary shoring. Up to now, the gentleman in speak, he's a supervisor, and talk about temporary shoring. Nothing to sustain, to stop the slippage, except the Gabion basket. Then the contractor spoke, and he can't find the clip for some reason, but he trivialized the matter really, saying it was the water, and the water, and the water, and that roughly in a matter of weeks, everything would be back to normal and we'll get that thing going, right? Then came the Minister for Infrastructure, the man himself, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell.
Grenada's Prime Minister Honorable Deacon Mitchell and the parliamentary representative for the St. John constituency Honorable Kireen James on Monday evening met with residents of Clozier to discuss the way forward with regard to the construction of the collapsed road and its implications in the community. The Prime Minister says a team from the Ministry of Infrastructure has been assessing the situation to ascertain the next scope of work regarding the stabilizing of the area. Honorable Mitchell told community members the project will have to be extended given the severity of the unforeseen challenges.
On the 15th of May, there was an initial Nawasa pipe leakage that was observed, and then again on the 27th and the 28th of May, there were additional water leaks from the pipes. Now obviously, we're talking here 6-inch water pipe, and as a result, the leaking of the water would have created major challenges and created more instability on the site. And finally, on the 4th, Mr. Ferry described it, during that night, there appeared to have been a major rupture of the 6-inch pipe, and for perhaps more than 8 hours, water would have escaped onto the site. And you would see it led to a significant collapse of the entire site, including the road, and it started ahead of the one property that is located immediately adjacent to the site. And obviously, as you go there now, you could actually see that the road itself has dropped precipitously, and the entire site goes all the way into the private property upslope. That is significant. And also to address the fact that we have a single-story house which has suffered already damage from the collapsed soil. We have since, at the ministry, also engaged SAFED Inc., represented by Mr. Timothy Bob, who is a senior Grenadian engineer, and he's here with us, to provide additional engineering support to the team at the Ministry of Infrastructure. It therefore means that in order to stabilize the entire site and to complete the process, it is likely we may have to do further engineering of the site, and obviously additional retaining walls and construction work would have to be done.
The Prime Minister says, based on reports and assessment of damages to a house in close proximity to the project, discussion is being held to have the homeowner compensated.
It also means it is most likely that the property that has been impacted would have to be acquired by the government and compensation paid to the property owner, and he's here so that we can have access to that area to be able to make sure that the construction work continues and that there is no further risk of life or injury to property or to any person.
Mitchell says the cost of the project has increased significantly.
The revised cost estimate to the entire project now is in the region of $1.6 million from $250,000. So I'm saying this because we don't want to spend more money. Nobody wants to spend money for spending money's sake. The fact that the entire project has now gone up by a sixfold is a clear indication of the changes to the site that has happened.
Parliamentary representative for the St. John constituency, Honorable Kirin James, says the issue is a national one and therefore it should not be politicized.
And if we are honest with ourselves, this project and the one before that are the two projects that any government, any representative has truly done in a substantive way for the people of Clozier in St. John.
For MTV News, Rachel Bain.
Thank you, MTV News. Forget the minister, forget the MP, forget that. What say that don't make no sense. Anybody politicizing it is so. Nobody talk about politics there. Forget that. Now, the Prime Minister basically repeated what the contractor said. All of a sudden it's bus pipe, bus pipe, bus pipe. Bus pipe, they excavating bus pipe. They excavating the pipes and bust them. According to him. What we heard of was one bus pipe. Now we hear about 3, 4, 5, 6 bus pipes. Bus pipes were so to blame it on the movement of the soil. But if the soil, if there was temporary shoring, we would not have the movements, right? According to experts who been in. Actually spoke to the CTO in person. Called him by phone early in the game to explain what needed to be done. Asked him to call him when he reached on the project. That particular morning, weeks ago, he never did call him. Call the expert, the engineer, the geotechnical engineer. Never did. And they never did put the temporary shoring. Never did. Never did. So with the Prime Minister repeating what the contractor told him, and his people in the ministry, who was all wrong anyway and didn't do the thing right, correct, according to the minister, they didn't do it proper. It was not done proper. And you want to bet they're going to cost much more than 1.6 million? Every project they have done. Every project they have. We're hearing, and we have been asking for confirmation that the project on the Carronage, the headquarters, had an overrun up to $20 million. But we know how long they've been on the ground there. We know. And we also know, which I told you, of the mafia-style ministers who've been going to the contractor to collect monies on a weekly basis, in some cases, 10,000 here and a 10,000 there and a 3,000 there. The money done, the man project ain't done. Real mafia style. John Gotti going to the different businesses and collecting cash. You know about the blind leading the blind, because the Prime Minister just repeated what the contractor told him. The expert said that the busted pipe and the water had nothing to do with the slippage. In other words, if there was temporary showing, then the water would not have affected the project.
Initially, one of the most critical mistakes that was made also, because the soil was not temporarily supported before excavation, what you have is a situation, you have a soil that's not supported, you have a vehicle passing on top of that soil, which adds additional pressure, downward pressure on the soil. Now that soil is going to try to move to accommodate that pressure, and there is nothing supporting that soil. So of course it's going to fill up, it's going to collapse, it's going to fail. And that is exactly what's happening. I mean, you see there's a lot of talk and much to do about the water main broke and that caused the soil to fail. But it's actually the other way around. The soil failed because there was nothing to hold it in place. So once that soil settled, that actually broke the water main that was underneath the roadway. And of course, the soil became waterlogged. But again, keep in mind, this soil is not temporarily supported. So if it's waterlogged, vehicles are passing on top of it, there is absolutely certainty that it will fail. He's saying the same thing. I totally agree with you, Dr. Bob. And because of that background knowledge with the issues that exist, all more for a reason why I'm not blaming, previous administration. I'm just talking in generality of the situation of whoever engineer or engineers that should be working on the project would know that if those situations exist, that you have to be more careful and critical in your design. Remember, we do design for seismic all the time. They do design for seismic in California. They do design for seismic all over the world. So this is not something that's strange. You can actually design, even in your regular residential and commercial design, you take into consideration seismic design for the worst case scenario of a hurricane, or you take into consideration of the worst case scenario for an earthquake. This is something you actually do in residential design. And you put measures in place. For example, just to give you a little hint, in these major tall buildings and high-rise buildings, there are specific walls called shear walls that is designed to resist earthquake loading and seismic loading. So again, if you're going to embark on such a project, and I do agree with you, I think there might have been some misunderstanding and poor judgment in the sense that they did not understand the gravity of the situation. I don't understand why, because we're used to slippage across the western side. Again, the gentleman, Mr. Mitchell said, this is something that is common knowledge in the Clozier area. So, almost a reason why a thorough, boring investigation should have been done. And again, I keep reiterating, I don't understand how you design a retaining wall in an area that is waterlogged without having all the technical data to do that. And based on what I've gathered, this was designed internally in the Ministry of Infrastructure. And rightfully so, Mr. Alvin Brown,
he's a permanent secretary,
right,
yes.
Great, awesome. So he has said that he saw the need. So I'm glad he saw that need to look towards outside consulting, because obviously he felt that this cannot be handled internally, and that is not unique. It's okay. It's not a reflection of the horrible nature of the Ministry of Infrastructure. It just means that they may not have the technical ability currently to handle it.
Anyway, where is the advisor to the Ministry of Infrastructure, the one that was on ride along with all the information about the procurement, and the one that prepared the contract for the Cliff Road project and said everything is above board? Where is he, the electrical engineer? With all that's going on in Clozier, I ain't see or hear him take covers, come out trying to defend Andy. And Andy know. And they know too, I am almost certain they all know by now that Andy took the bribe. Defending him, that could never happen. This could never happen. Mr. Rodney George, I'm embarrassed for you at your age and stage. I'm totally embarrassed for you with this nonsense about it could never happen, how the procurement is done. I come into you all with procurement just now, and we're going to see how it could happen through procurement. I will show you all how it could happen. And instead of taking advice from the expert, they kept trying all sorts of nonsense when they were specifically told what the first order of business was: slope stabilization. You'd think they would have learned after what happened to the top slope in Molinaire. Now, today, 2 months later, and a multitude of problems, place mashup, and I'm speaking about Clozier, they are trying or fighting up to try to stabilize the area. The sliding or sidelining, let me think about it. The sidelining of the CTO and the hiring of outside help proved that the Ministry of Infrastructure is absolutely responsible for this disaster. Now, all of these initial failures, negligence, and disasters resulted in the ballooning of this project to 6 times the original cost, according to the Prime Minister, the wasting of taxpayers' money. No planning, taking no criticisms, no advice, and never accepting responsibilities. Several videos was posted in social media, which I'm certain those in authority have seen. Videos explaining what to do and conversation held, as I said before, with the CTO. Mr. Perry John asked several times to stop the excavating, stop the building of the permanent wall, and concentrate on the temporary shoring, on the stabilization of the soil. No one took heed. Now look at the state of the area. If you look on the screen, you'll see where it is today, from a 3-inch crack to like a 6-foot one. It is dangerous. Now let's hear, and I'm going to play it again, lest we forget what Mr. Perry John had to say on temporary shoring, excavating, and this wall.
Okay, Clozier, first order of business is site stabilization. Mr. Alvin Brown has said they have moved out of the Ministry of Infrastructure and has gotten outside consultants to help them. Well, I humbly request that someone suggests to them, Mr. Timothy Bubb and all the outside consultants, please, first order of business is site stabilization. How do you do that? Sheet piling. If you have access to some sheet piling, change the bucket on that excavator and stop excavating. Change the bucket, add an extension for a hammer or driver, drive some sheet pile, stabilize the roadway, and then you can do all the excavation and you can continue working on the permanent fix, which is the retaining wall. But key, first order of business, site stabilization. So for all of you who said that you love the NDC so much and you love the administration so much, get the message to the right people. Site stabilization.
So Claret, what you've done with that post is to further expose the foot. There is no lack of information on what has to be done or what has been taking place out there in Clozier St. John. You guys put up a poster telling the residents it is dangerous to use the slipping area. And if they do so, if you look at the screen, you'll see the poster. And if they do so, it will be at their own risk. But you gave them no alternative route. It was an emergency a couple Saturdays ago, a few Saturdays ago, more than 2, maybe 3 or 4 Saturdays ago. The minister panicking, right? It's dangerous. They have no alternative route. And the shuttle you supplied is dropping them off by the sign. And then they have to walk through the project The dangerous project with the walkway they made for them every probably half an hour breaking up and falling down, and they pong it back and it fall down again. Dangerous. And you correct when you put the sign, erected the sign. It is dangerous. As the expert said, it's even dangerous for the men that's working on the wall because there is no stabilization. It is dangerous when they are down in that deep dungeon down there, right? So they have to walk from where you drop them off by the sign, the danger sign, to the other side through the slippage to get the shuttle on the other side. Now tell me how that makes sense. As the young people say, make that make sense for me. Just make it make sense for me. They have to pass through the same danger zone. Now here are some videos, the latest videos, or video I should say, of Clozier compliments Mr. Dexter Mitchell, a resident of the area. Now there's talk of an impassable back road. How about you open up that road, throw some binders on the road there in the meantime, because it's desperation here now. In the immediate, throw some binders so the resident can continue with their livelihoods. In the meantime, they can go to work. They can go to town, the town of Guelph, right? To conduct business. Open a route for vehicles to traverse as well as pedestrians. Hey, Claudette, how about that? How about opening the back road that is being spoken of and throwing some binders in the meantime, because we need it. It's in the immediate. Man, you don't have time to pave a concrete road. That Clozier road should fall under the UKSIF Western Side Rehabilitation Project that all you gave to Andy for the South. All you wicked all your wicked. But the Prime Minister opening private road to go to private development in the mountains in Mardi Gras, St. David.
This is the Mardi Gras Farm Road that we're opening up. As you can see, work has started. We expect that it will give an opportunity for increased agriculture. Everything from bamboo cultivation to citrus to all of the traditional spices. Goat farming, there's a goat pen put up. Where a returning national has been trying to get the goat farm going for a while, but because of the road, he hasn't been able to expand his production. So we're here to try and get this done. It's a significant road, and we believe once we complete it, we will completely open up the area for enhanced agricultural production. So to the farmers of Grenada, one road at a time, we will get them. As you can see, bridge work has started, and we're hoping that we can get the road completed. It's a pretty long road. I don't have the exact length of it, but I'll get it. We're hoping that the road can be completed so that we can have proper access by the farmers and the landowners up in the city. As you can see, proper bridge, 2 vehicles can pass, even in the farm. So to the people of Mardi Gras, I'm in the farm road first, checking out the farmers, and then I'll come and visit you next week.
So, Faith, imagine the Prime Minister opening up road to cultivate bamboo. Farm roads, he said. Farm roads? The Prime Minister said he's building road to encourage farming. But in Clozier, where there are many farmers already farming, they are left without access to and from their farms and access to take their produce, to get it sold. But the opening farm roads, the question is, Prime Minister, who are the farmers with the lands up in that mountain? I have another question, Prime Minister. Did you purchase lands from the new development up in the mountain where that road leads to the private development in Mardi Gras, in the mountain in Mardi Gras? Did you purchase lands in that development? Lands with an incredible view, and we know you like view. You like view, huh? And while we're on lands, roads, and views, tell us, Prime Minister, about the Malmont Bay Road project. Let's have a little snippet of a clip of that project. Now, is it true, Prime Minister, you have purchased lands, beachfront lands, which you conveniently have been farming? I don't know if they're farming for you, if you lease it for them, but there's farming taking place on the lands, the beachfront lands, at the moment. And so now the government of Grenada, through the Ministry of MIT, Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation, transforming Bay Road in Malmont indeed, or as they call it, rehabilitation, rehabilitating that road, the farm road, is building a road leading down to the beachfront lands. Is that farm road lands leading down to the beachfront lands? Folks, there are many cases like these where roads are being built throughout the island of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Or should I say Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada? Whatever happened to that, huh? That's so funny, right? where roads are being built, leading to private homes and properties that the Ministry of MIT was given millions to build. Private owners. I could show you a couple in the south, in Gulf Coast, right there. I can show you a couple of them. Roads being built for supporters and friends and businessmen, private people. Who are the lawyers, I wonder? Whilst the people of Clozier continue to risk their lives daily, our infrastructure is the worst it has been in 23 years. Yes. You like 23? Eh? It's the worst it has been in 23 years. The whole place smash up. But we're paying every day. The people are paying for its maintenance, the maintenance of the road. So said the Minister of Finance in his 2024 budget.
Vehicle license fee to be increased by $50 across all vehicles type to support the improved road maintenance. Mr. Speaker, the number of vehicles on our nation's road have increased significantly in the last 10 years, necessitating increased cost of road maintenance. The revenues collected from the policy, roughly $2.6 million, will go towards supporting road maintenance.
I know some of you don't quite understand what just happened there, so let me read it for you from the hard copy. Vehicles license fee to be increased by $50 across all vehicle types to support improved road maintenance. Mr. Speaker, the number of vehicles on our nation roads have increased significantly in the last 10 years, necessitating increased cost of road maintenance. The revenues collected from this policy, roughly 2.6 million, and I'm assuming that's annually, will go towards supporting road maintenance. Amendment to the procurement legislation by March 2024 to allow single sourcing, and I want you to listen to this, single sourcing of works, goods, and consultancy services up to $100,000. Mr. Speaker, the procurement framework is currently under review. While this is ongoing, we are of the considered view that the amendment to raise the current single sourcing threshold from $15,000. So as they came in, they changed the threshold where you could just give somebody a project without tendering from $15,000 to $100,000. Okay? Most of you might have known that already. Now I'm going to read to you a list of contracts awarded and awards taken from the procurement GD.GD site. Okay? And let me see if I can make it as wide as possible and legible. It's kind of okay. Might have to scroll. Okay. Now, what happened here? So we have here Sortes 6 feet Dia ductile iron pipeline upgrade installation project. Open tendering, National Water and Sewerage Authority, Irvin, Merriman, and the amount $372,712.10, right? Then there is supply and installation of solar lights at Telescope St. Andrew, and it says direct selection. Now, there's nowhere in the Procurement Act that speaks of direct selection. In implementation and the transformation and Grid-Free Solutions, Inc. Now, I am in the process of getting information from Kaipo on all these businesses and so to see if they're legit, and also from the Inland Revenue Department. Now, this one is $250,008. Rehabilitation of Farm Road, St. David's, another direct selection. Now, that is the Malmont Road that I told you about, leading to the beachfront property. Implementation and mobilization, Ministry of Implementation and Mobilization. Now, that is the ministry through which this project is being procured. Now, that is given to Kelly Klein, and the amount is $190,371. Rehabilitation of Woodlands Road, St. George's. Direct selection again. Now, all of these projects are over $100,000, where they ought to be tendered. But they give us a name, they make up a name, and they said it's direct selection. So in other words, they're selecting that individual directly without any tendering and giving them these projects, okay? So the Woodlands one, again through the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and the Transportation. And that is given to Kenny's Trucking and Equipment Service. Now, where in Woodlands is this project? And that project is $156,393.75. And then there is supply of 3 water trucks to the Grenada Police Force, direct selection, again through the Ministry of Implementation and Transformation, Export Tank Weld Equipment Limited. Got that work to bring in these troops, right? And the amount, $592,890.65. 2 million, you know, 2.5 million plus. And they say direct selection. When anything over $100,000 supposed to be tendered, but they select their people directly for $2.5 plus million, almost as a matter of fact, $3 million, right? Then there is rehabilitation of Mongo Road, Guab, St. John. You must have heard the MP, they're always talking about the Mongo Road project. Very proud of the Mongo Road project. Another direct selection. Also through the Ministry of MIT. Global Ventures, Inc. I know who that is. $627,150. Right? We going on, there more. Rehabilitation of Cafe Boo Hill in St. George. Direct selection through the Ministry of MIT. Kenny's Trucking, Equipment and Service. $150,630.75. Then there is rehabilitation of Lansepines by Roads, S.A. Francis Top Road, St. George's. Direct selection by our Ministry of Implementation and Transportation. Modern Construction Company Limited, $265,475. Resurfacing the netball court, direct selection, through the Ministry of MIT, Grenada Pavement Construction Limited, $360,233. Rehabilitation of Calise Road, St. George's, direct selection, Ministry of MIT, Modern Construction Company Limited, $292,647.25. Excavation work at farm roads in Mardi Gras, St. David, direct selection through the Ministry of MIT. Bagwan's tricking and equipment, $140,287.50. Well, I hope that's not Bagwan, the PS construction. Tricking and equipment, they said, not construction. Construction of a livestock pen in Limley, livestock facility in Carriacou. Is that a government livestock pen? And it says RFQ request for quotation. As good as direct selecting. Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Forestry, and it was given to Neil Patrice, $508,959.53. Construction of a plant nursery at Marybo Propagation Station in St. Andrew, and same RFQ request for quotation, and Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Forestry, and it's Tego Construction Limited, $135,807.38. Nothing 100,000 and under, none. This is 2025 so far, huh? Construction of waste management, RFQ request for, and it says Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, and it doesn't have how much, and it doesn't have who's going to do the work. Folks, as I said before, none of it. Nothing about direct selection in the Procurement Act. Now, this is Minister Cornwall on the amendment of the procurement bill.
Amendments to the procurement legislation by March 2024 to allow single sourcing of work, goods, and consultancy service up to 100,000. Mr. Speaker, the procurement framework is currently under review. While this is ongoing, we are of the considered view that the amendment to raise the current single source threshold from 15,000, which has been in effect for almost 10 years, is warranted. To strengthen the procurement framework by implementing e-government procurement, updating the current legal framework, and benchmarking the current process against best practices. Mr. Speaker, this policy reflects our effort to improve procurement function, to increase transparency and boost the efficiency of procurement and the economy more broadly. Review of subsidies paid to international bodies to ensure clear values/benefits for the subscription paid to those bodies to ensure value for money. Mr. Speaker, this policy supports our effort to rationalize expenditure and reduce wastage.
Now, my question is, why are those contracts being done through the Ministry of MIT and not the Ministry of Infrastructure? But then we know the answer to that, right? Follow the money. Follow the money. Then there is this, a post made by MP Ron Redhead. If you look on your screen, you'd see the post, which reads, let me get that there. For the first time, the government of Grenada, and for the first time, right, is collaborating with Today's Wonders Limited on the southern connecting road at Chantilly, which leads back to Tempe through Ravine. This project aims to eliminate flooding, provide an emergency access route, and improve traffic flow. Folks, the company, Today's Wonders, is still registered, but is listed as closed for business activities at the Inland Revenue Division, which means no tax returns. The business is no longer functional, according to the Inland Revenue Department. Can anyone answer to me to the question, why is the government of Grenada collaborating with a private company owned by Mr. Hugh Dolan and his family to build roads in the St. George Northeast? Anyone? 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 Can anyone answer this question? According to MP Ron Redhead, the project is to eliminate flooding, provide emergency access route, and improve traffic flow. He was correct, though, for the first time. I've never heard of it. I don't know if you have. These guys continue to take us for fools. What is the Dolan's interest in Chantilly? Time will tell. Simon Says will tell. So when the roads are built, who does the road belong to? The government of Grenada or Today's Wonders? Or a partnership road, aka the Dorans? Question, is it true the Dorans have lands up there? Just a question. Asking for the neighbors in the area. But the people continue to risk their lives daily in Clozier, in an effort to take care of themselves and their family. And what happened in a few weeks? What happens in a few weeks when school reopens? How are the Clozier school children getting to and from their neighborhood schools, the schools in the area? And since you are responding to Facebook, Claudette, as to what on your mind, Claudette, I am sure that as Attorney General and defendant in this case, in the CJ's managerial services case brought against you as AG and the government of Grenada, and won, CJ's won the case against you and the government of Grenada. I'm sure that has to be on your mind. Why didn't you tell us about that? And it's Faith next. You guys remember this clip on CJ's and on Faith, really? We're going to do them back to back.
Under our democracy, there are three arms to the state: the parliament, the executive, and the judiciary. We all ask when we run for elections to be elected to parliament. Parliament is an equal arm of the state, just like the cabinet of ministers. Parliament has to have its own budget, and the parliamentary offices have to be resourced from the parliamentary budget. The NNP administration, since 2016, took the vote that was allocated for parliament, placed it in the Prime Minister's office, and ran the parliamentary offices out of the Prime Minister's office. And the Prime Minister, now the leader of the opposition, admitted that the Prime Minister's office had no capacity and it should never have, because that's not its job, to run or administer the offices of the members of parliament. And so what did he do? He contracted out those services to a private company called CJ's Managerial Services. And just so you understand that this isn't some joke, between 2016 and 2022, CJ's Managerial Services was paid over $13 million. So, maybe because they feel there was no opposition in Parliament, they could do what they want. But Parliament isn't cabinet. And the institution of Parliament needs to be respected. The net effect of this is that when the government changed, not us, I was advised by the civil servants recognizing the embarrassment that was to ensue, because it now meant, assuming I wanted to continue with the contract for CJ's Managerial Services, that the now leader of the opposition and his MPs would have to come to me, the Prime Minister's office, to have their staff paid, to have their landlord paid, to have their utilities paid. Exactly. And so the civil servants, on their own, terminated the contract. And since then, there have been requests for us to pay CJ's Managerial Services. I'm just reporting. Just reporting. But the point I'm making is, MPs, including myself, have not been able to properly perform as an MP because Parliament itself had no money to properly staff MPs' offices, and are now only now beginning to do this because we have since instructed the Ministry of Finance to move the vote back with Parliament. But when you're out of practice for 7, 8, 9 years, you're rusty. And so even as we speak, the signs for the MP's offices have not been made as yet. Furniture, in many instances, have still not arrived at our offices. And so 4 months after the election, we are unable to function as MPs because the resources that belonged under the parliamentary vote were moved under the Prime Minister's office. And the excuse that Parliament might be inefficient is not an excuse for taking monies that properly ought to be allocated to Parliament. If the clerk is not doing his job, as MPs we could complain. The clerk is responsible for somebody as well. You can't move the money out from Parliament, put it in the Prime Minister's office so you can give it to who you want. Because in essence, that is exactly what happened. And again, one client that CJ's had, the government of Grenada. So you do the math, 13 plus 6, 19, $20 million. So that is the state of play we met when it came to how business was conducted. On assuming office, we learned of the existence of an organization, and I always struggle with the name, so let me get a correct name. Have Feet. Yes. So let me make sure I don't misquote the name and I give you the correct name. Well, the name changed, so I will give you the original name and the current name. We encountered an organization called Faith Organization for People's Development, Inc. Now, the organization is incorporated under the Companies Act as a not-for-profit company. Therefore, it should be engaged in philanthropic, charitable, religious helping, not to make a profit. Prior to that, it did a name change. Its original name was St. Andrew South East Development Organization, Inc. The learned Minister of Education ran for the beautiful constituency of St. Andrew Southeast. So when this entity was incorporated, it was incorporated as a not-for-profit organization called St. Andrew Southeast Development Organization, Inc. The name hints or suggests it was meant to help develop the constituency of St. Andrew Southeast. It subsequently metamorphosized, became a butterfly, and became the name Fate. But I just want to point out something. In 2 years, between 2020 and July of 2022, this company was paid $6.8 million by the government of Grenada. Now, in addition to that, the then Cabinet of Grenada passed a cabinet resolution handing over 3 community centers located in St. Andrews Southeast to that same organization. Community centers meant for the community, meant for use of the people, was handed over to this company, to this not-for-profit company. Now, if you're a not-for-profit company, and if you could convince the government of Grenada in 2 years to give you $6.8 million, what are you providing to the people of Grenada? And how miraculously the only client you have is the government of Grenada. So what were the services they were providing? Apparently, sanitization services. Spraying children's hands when they come to school. Maybe wiping countertop or chair or whatever, I don't know. But in 2 years, they racked up $3 million in revenues. Not-for-profit companies are required to file financial statements at the company's registry. No financial statements have been filed for 2021, and I doubt any will be filed for 2022. But let's dig a little deeper. Last time I checked, the government of Grenada, sometime in February of 2022, dropped all protocols in relation to COVID-19. There was no mask wearing, there was no social distancing, there was no sanitization, there was no insistence on anybody spraying anything. So explain to me between February and July, elections were in June, and July, what services could you possibly have been providing when it comes to sanitization and so on? And I'm simply pointing, those are facts. You can argue about contract and so on, that's fine. I'm a lawyer. We can get to court when the time comes. And who has to sue can sue. That's on the domestic front. Let me share on the international front.
So it's big jokes. It's Comedy Central. Who's and the ahs, the eye-opening, the taking notes, the looking back to talk, it's all of that. And I'm a lawyer. And CJs whooped their behind in court. And you see, all the questions he's asking about faith and what they did, it's being laid out in the court as we speak. Faith is next as we speak. So instead of the government, as he paraded there, sounded like they were going to take CJs and Faith to court. Faith and CJs took them to court. One in the bag. CJs whooped their behind in court, right? Yes, with the lawyer included. I'm a lawyer included. They whooped their behind. And the conclusion for the defendant, at the end of the assessment, conceded 30% of the total sum claimed, which, according to counsel, total the sum of $70,730.87. The sum is a nominal increase to the amount assessed by the court, and accordingly, the court shall award the sum conceded by the defendant. Order for the foregoing reason, it is ordered as follows. 1. The claimant claim is allowed. 2. The defendant's counterclaim is dismissed. The defendant is the government and the Attorney General. The defendant shall pay the claimant damages in the sum of $70,730.87 with interest at the rate of 3% per annum from August 2022 until judgment, and at the rate of 6% per annum from judgment until payment in full. The defendant shall pay the claimant prescribed costs in the sum of $10,609.63 pursuant to Part 65 of the CPR revised 2023 edition. So the same CJs and the only client is the government, the yadi dan, the oohs and the ahs and the big jokes with the lawyer on board. Beat the crap out of them in court. Beat the crap out of them in court. Then the Deacon Mitchell-led administration, would you believe it, formed what they called Nation Builders, a division within, listen carefully here, a division within the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation, follow the money, established to facilitate, promote community engagement by fostering collaboration between government and the citizens. It is also called a non-profit, non-government organization, an NGO. Now that's, remember, it happened on the faith, and this is a non-for-profit organization. I think CJ's was as well. The non-for-profit organization. Remember, he hopped on that. So is Nation Builders that they formed. Now, Nation Builders was legally registered in October of 2023, and though announced as an initiative of the state, Nation Builders is not a project that has to comply with the financial rules and regulations established for government agencies and departments. In September of 2023, an application was made to the Attorney General Chambers to register the NGO by the law firm Mitchells & Co., whose local address is Unit 14 to 16, Excel Plaza, Grand and St. George's, the office and law firm of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. The address of the principal office of the company, and that is Nation Builders, is Unit number 2, Hudson House, St. John Street, St. George's, Grenada. The property and that housed the business of the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, which housed a sub-office of Mitchell & Co. as well. The Prime Minister first announced all the hee-haw-ooh-hows about CJs and faith. Look at what we got. Nation Builders. Worse. Because the Prime Minister's law firm did the legal work, and the Prime Minister's next law firm, his house on St. John Street, is the business, is the address of the business. And this Nation Builders is through the Ministry of MIT. Follow the money. The Prime Minister first announced the launch of Nation Builders in March of 2023 at a town hall meeting in his constituency, St. David's, where he told the audience that Nation Builders first project would be the water access and sanitation in the homes, called the WASH project, an initiative by the government of Grenada. At the time of the announcement, Orlando Romain, special envoy to the creative economy and ICT and advisor to the government of Grenada on same, that is economy and ICT, and the creative economy, explained what Nation Builders is about.
The government of Grenada, through the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, has launched the Nation Builders project, which will help to improve the lives of people in need. Through government partnership with the private sector and non-governmental organizations, the project seeks to enhance community engagement by addressing the bureaucratic obstacles that hinder advancement.
If I want to build a playground, instead of going to the ministry, and in some instances, I mean, not with this government, but previous governments, they get around, you get frustrated and you just withdraw your services. There's an entity now that will facilitate that process for you to ensure that your projects are heard, recognized, and that we channel it to the right ministry or agency for fast implementation. Nation Builders would also seek to collaborate with the private sector. So for example, I may have an idea for a playground, I have $10,000, but I need another $20,000 to make the program a reality. Through Nation Builders, we will facilitate the pooling of resources by collaborating with the private sector, collaborating with other citizens to ensure the effective execution of those projects. So essentially, Nation Builders is a facilitator for citizens' involvement in the building of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique.
It all depends on who is building the business. That you get facilitated with a cut of bureaucracy. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But is Nation Builders an NGO or another money laundering scheme through the Ministry of MIT? Just asking for the people. Just asking for the people. Because according to the article of incorporation, a non-profit organization or non-for-profit organization, as he clearly stated with Faith and CGs, shall only carry on business as a philanthropic, charitable, educational, scientific, literary, artistic, professional, sporting, or authentic nature, of authentic nature. You be the judge. So you tell me, what is a Nation Builders? In the 2025 budget debate, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell announced on Tuesday, the 11th March 2025, to the House, to the lower house of Parliament, the government of Grenada has provided EC $4,445,000 to their so-called NGO, Nation Builders, which falls under the Ministry of MIT. Follow the money. Monies allocated according to the 2024-2025 estimates of revenues and expenditure, aka the budget. The first three directors of Nation Builders are Mr. Benedict Peters, Ms. Dorsian Shireen Ruth Noel, and Ms. Marie Benjamin, partner and mother of Mr. Orlando Romain's kids, appointed on the 12th of September 2023. So Claudette, explain to us, what is Nation Builders? What's that to Facebook? What is Nation Builders? As Attorney General, and while you're at it, tell us how much money you have cost the taxpayers of Grenada in just 3 years. How many cases you've lost? I know of, in my count, it's about 11. I know there are some that slipped through that I don't know about, but it's about 11. and more to come. There's a big one. Something big is coming. Coming up in a couple of months. You've lost already. Then there's Faith, who's also took you guys to court with an ongoing case. And the judge, Justice Sean Innocent, that you guys have been harassing. I'll give you guys a report on the story of Justice Sean Innocent in my next episode. Very, very appalling. The only place in the Caribbean, probably in the world, that I know an incumbent is harassing a sitting judge. Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, trying to keep them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next Thursday, same time, same place. Have a good one. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.